Your wife goes to our church sometimes, does she not?
She what?
Your wife, I've
Sounds
seen
like
her
a lot of
in
people
church.
up there.
Yeah, well, the Cancer
Christ the
Smashers are
Servant?
Not
probably a
too
big
old.
group.
Usually
You
we're
know,
Our Lady of Peace.
our pastor died suddenly.
Yeah, I know, I heard.
What, that was,
short guy?
yeah, I saw that.
Sylvia, the short guy?
Yeah.
Who kinda walked-
Vitus, was his name Vitus?
Yeah, Father
Yeah.
Frank
I-
Vitus.
And a couple times ago, the original pastor passed away fairly young too, didn't he?
Yeah.
You have an assistant there?
Don't drink the water
No.
there.
So small.
It was so sad because he was so good.
You know what, I saw, my cousin's son got married there, the Glennons,
He's so nice.
and we saw, he gave a
Can
wonderful
we go
sermon.
get them cats so they can
That's
come
why
in?
we-
You
and
know what,
lead
yeah,
the pledge or
Scott, do you want to
something?
let
Yeah,
them
on
know
Sundays
that
I
we're
was there
starting the
because
meeting?
Father
And,
Frank's sermon.
To
Okay.
come in?
Well, boy, they had some ceremony for it. Like they had like a memorial service for him on Saturday. And it was beautiful, like 3 bishops and archbishop. And
Really?
Okay, somebody's got,
house.
oh, Janine's got, she's fighting cancer. Okay. Yep. Cancer Smashers. Cute. Cute. Big group. Okay.
I like the colorful shirts.
We're ready? Okay. I think we'll wait till everyone is seated. This is a big group. Some little ones, too.
They're cute, cute kids.
Oh, my goodness.
Wanted twins until I had my first,
Just when I was going to start,
granting that wish.
the crowd keeps coming.
There goes 7:35.
Yeah.
Won't start till 7:30.
See, Joe, you jinxed us.
I know, I apologize.
No, you don't.
I'd like to call our city council meeting to order and ask everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Michael, do you want to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? We have Eagle Scout Michael Sklodowski with us this evening, who we'll be honoring, but... Ready? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The roll, please.
Belkey. Here. Belzak.
Here.
Kenny.
Here.
Marquez.
here.
McIver.
Here.
Shower.
Here.
Seifert.
Here.
7 present.
We have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature from anyone in the audience. We introduced this a number of years ago in order to allow anyone in the audience who wants to address the council on any issue. It doesn't have to be issues that we have on our city council agenda for this evening, but if you want to answer ask any questions, please come forward. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Michigan Mesny. I live at 402. You people call it 71st Street. I call it Main Street. I moved in before the park was there. There was a notice that they were going to build a park. No one said it was going to be Six Flags over Darien. We have a problem with the parking on the street that the police, for whatever reason, ignore people parking. Over the years, everything has been added to the community park. The park district keeps on adding more and more events. The city over the years, when I say the city, the Hinsdale races, the homecoming for the high school, things just keep on multiplying and multiplying. The latest thing now is the farmer's market. How can you put a market in a parking place and expect the neighborhood to put up with it? And along them lines, why can't people park on 72nd Street? It's been no parking for years. And yet I've talked to the alderman about the parking, my neighbors complain about the parking. It's getting extremely out of hand. When is the city gonna step up and say enough is enough? And I think Mr. Gombach might be, I don't think you'd pass the way the street is constructed now if the park was built today. But they just added over the years and nothing's changed, everything's added. And I know everybody on my end of the block, because I'm right on the corner, there's always some kind of problem going on. And The police have been out there as far as the parking issue, that seems to be a gray area. They let people park, Park District says it's not their problem, but like I said, how can you allow to take a parking lot and fill it with something and then expect the people to park somewhere else? So will the city ever look into something like that and make the Park District either build a bigger parking lot and use it for a parking lot? There's just so much going on 71st Street between parades and, like I said, there was nothing there when I moved in. And now everything, every year, they never take anything away. So if somebody would like to comment and tell me why it's that situation. Why does everything have to be done on 71st Street?
Thank you for your comments. This is our first year with the farmers market, so we've been trying to work out a plan to deal with the parking along 71st Street, and we've even had the Park District have a person out there on 71st Street this past Wednesday in order to make sure, especially right in front of your home, where there has been some abuses, to make sure that people abide by the no parking sign that's in front of your home, which they have not paid attention to in the past few weeks. So we are taking action to make sure that the no parking is followed on that street. I understand your frustration. This is the first year that we've had the farmers market there, so we're trying to work it out and make sure that all the residents along 71st Street's concerns are answered, but also we want the park to be used in a positive way. So we're trying to balance both of those issues. I'm sure you recall a couple of years ago, we had problems over the park. And I'm sure you were one of the residents that called in to tell us about the bad element that was going on in the park. So we want to promote good things happening in that park, but we also want to find a balance to take care of your concerns on 71st Street. Luckily, the farmers market is a temporary thing. It will only be during the summertime. I believe October, there's beginning of October when it ends. So you'll see the end of that, all of that parking along 71st Street. So we can hold that out as something that will make you feel a little bit better that it's a temporary issue, that it will go away come October and you'll have some peace and quiet, less parking along there. I don't think you want to take anything away from the VFW with their Memorial Day event and their Veterans Day event. I don't think that's an issue. Is it? Is that an issue for you?
No, that's held at the other side, the other end of the park.
But they're parking all along 71st Street there.
Very seldom do they get. But they also have a parking lot to park there at the time.
But
They
I've
don't
seen
block
I've
things.
seen parking all along 71st Street for the veterans events. But as you know, that's only a one-day event and it's gone away. So we are trying to balance both things, the concerns of the residents on 71st Street, but we want to keep the positiveness that's going on in the park to make sure the bad element stays away. So we will try our best
Well,
to
that's
come
all
up with
well
an
and
answer.
good. Then let the park build a bigger parking lot further west. It's all well and good to have a lot of things going on in the park. I mean, I object because I live across, my windows vibrate when the bands play.
I feel for you with Darien Fest.
And I'm not talking about Darien Fest, I'm talking about the local bands they have there now. And I can understand you saying I'm wanting to utilize the park more. But if you're gonna utilize the park, then have adequate parking to do it. And I don't know, like I said, I don't think you would approve that entrance to that park that close to 71st Street nowadays. The way that traffic pattern is laid out, with or without no parking, it's just, why would you put a thing right there where people are dropping off little kids because the parking lot's filled up? So that's just my comment. And like I said, I've lived here for years.
Yeah.
And they keep on adding things, events, and they never take anything away. And it's just getting totally out of hand. There's other parts of that park they can use. And as far as I'm concerned, they could have had the farmer's market over in the new park off of 75th Street. There's plenty of parking over there. And they could set up all the booths. There wouldn't be any problem at all. So why the Park District showed that to take it, if you got adequate parking, that's fine. But standing room out on the street isn't right. Thank you.
Well, so this is, as I said, this is the first year that the Park District has done the farmers market. So I'm sure that after this season is over, they'll take a look and take that under advisement.
Well, I've mentioned various things that have gone on to the Park District, and I have hearing aids, and they should, because it goes in one ear and out the other. In fact, my neighbors are going to the Park District for the same consideration.
Okay.
And if they're allowed to exist, then I think they should build a bigger parking space.
Okay.
And at least they should pay to widen the road there, because you technically will wind up with one lane if people park there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Did anyone else want to address the city council? Then let's move on to the approval of the minutes of August 4th. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Seifert, seconded by Alderman Belke. Any additions or deletions for the record? The roll, please.
Seifert,
Aye.
Belke,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
MacIver,
Aye.
Shower,
Aye.
Marquez,
Aye.
7 ayes.
The minutes have been approved. The next item is receiving of communications. Do any of the aldermen have communications to share? Alderman Belke?
I have a communication from Mr. Phil McCullum at 109 Iris Road, and this is one of the roads where the city's coming in to do the ditch work, and he had called me to say that he didn't quite understand what was going on in front of his house. It appeared to him that there was some drainage going on, and it ended right before his house, and then his was just left open. And we put Dan in touch with him, and at the end of the day, Dan went out there in the crew and made some modifications for him, even though it would have worked okay beforehand. But he understood the residents' communication, and just in a nutshell, Phil was very pleased with the way the city responded, and he just wanted to give a thank you out.
Great. Other communications? Alderman Kenny?
I have a couple, Madam Mayor. Mr. Matt Houghton, Haughton, on Walden Lane, was complaining about a boat on Exeter. Michael Griffith has gotten that and taken care of it. But we've also got an issue tonight that Scott Corn might talk a little bit about. John Becker on the 1600 block of Clare Courts has an issue with the aggregate electric bill that he received. So I'll let Scott, talk about that.
This was the first month that the change went into effect. Scott, did you want to address that?
You
Yeah.
want to do that under, we were going to do that under
Oh, that's
department
right.
head
Yes, you
report,
have a
since we have a
report.
lot
Yeah,
of
that's
people
right. I
here tonight.
forgot. Okay, thank you. He's going to give a more thorough report on what happened and why. Any other communications? I just want to mention, I've had the pleasure of attending a number of ribbon cuttings recently. On August 12th, MFC Sports Performance had their ribbon cutting. They are located in off Lamont Road near the Perfect Swing business. Very worthwhile business coming to Darien. Welcome to them. Also, we had the Frugal Muse has a new owner, and his ribbon cutting occurred on July 25th. Welcome to Mr. Garrison, and good luck in his business. Also, Sears has a new, the Sears outlet on 75th and Cass has a new ownership, and we wanted to wish them welcome to the city of Darien, and hopefully everyone will use all of these new businesses that have come into Darien. Is there any other communications to share? Then let's move on to the mayor's report, and it's my honor to read a few resolutions this evening, honoring a number of individuals in town who have done some pretty wonderful things. We'll start out with the item A, motion to approve a resolution commending Michael Sklodowski for his achievement to the rank of Eagle Scout in the city of Darien. The resolution reads, whereas Michael Sklodowski is the son of Larry and Yvonne and the brother of Stephen, and whereas Michael attended Elizabeth Ide and Prairie View Elementary Schools and Lakeview Junior High School, and whereas Michael is currently a junior at Downers Grove South High School in Downers Grove, and whereas Michael has displayed leadership within the community as an active member of Troop 99, Downers Grove, Illinois, Des Plaines Valley Council, Boy Scouts of America, and whereas Michael has earned 40 merit badges, And whereas Michael led a team that created a Veterans Memorial Garden to honor those who served in the city of Darien and DuPage County, and whereas Michael achieved the rank of Eagle Scout on June 20, 2014, and will be formally recognized and receive his award at an Eagle Scout Court of Honor at Faith United Methodist Church on September 21st, 2014. And whereas Eagle Scout Michael Sklodowski is an exemplary model for the Boy Scouts of America by observing their motto to be prepared and by following their teachings to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Now therefore be it resolved by Mayor Weaver and the City Council of the City of Darien, DuPage County, that Michael Sklodowski is hereby commended for his achievement as an Eagle Scout, his service to the community, and in particular for his continuing efforts and contributions of time, energy, and devotion to the Boy Scouts of America and the City of Darien. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Kenny, seconded by Alderman Seifert. The roll, please.
Kenny,
Aye.
Seifert,
Aye.
Belkey,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
McIver,
Aye.
Shower,
Aye.
Weaver,
Aye.
Regona, aye. Corrin,
Aye.
Murphy,
Aye.
Vanna,
Yes.
12.
What about Marquez?
I'm sorry, Marquez.
She's calling people
We
who
don't,
aren't
we
here.
don't
I'm
want
here.
to, we don't want to leave them out. How about that? Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
That was, oh, well.
Oh, well.
Joe, yep, you're still a member here. That's okay. Michael, do you want to come forward to receive this? Many of you already know that the memorial that Michael put together is outside here, right next to our City of Darien sign. So when you're leaving, take a look at what Michael created as his Eagle Scout project. So congratulations to Michael, and I think you're getting a picture taken. Yvonne? And you'll go up on our.
So back in about last year during spring break, we were on vacation, and I saw a
Michael, please speak closer to the microphone. They can hear you at home.
a memorial down in by the Mississippi River that looked really cool, and I thought since I'm gonna be going to military for Eagle Project, it'd kind of be fitting to replicate a variant of it. So after a while of planning and getting it all together, finally got the group together. We came out and completed it, and I've gotten a lot of recognition for it. Everyone thinks it looks really nice.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Nice job.
I think everybody up here wants to shake your hand.
Congratulations, Michael.
You made our city complex look a lot better. Good job.
Yes. Can you build a clock tower?
The next item on my mayor's report is a motion to approve a resolution commending Cancer Smashers for their volunteerism, and I'd like to read that resolution. Whereas Cancer Smashers is a local group of children raising money and awareness for research of all cancers, and whereas Cancer Smashers has been in existence a little over 3 years, and whereas Cancer Smashers participated and won awards in the Darien 4th of July Parade and the LaGrange Pet Parade, and whereas Cancer Smashers collected and delivered over 2,100 toys to Shriners Children's Hospital, Lurie Children's Hospital, and Hospice, and whereas Cancer Smashers volunteered at the Hinsdale Wellness Center annual walk, and whereas the Smashers helped a farm shear alpacas. I'll have to get the answer to that one, too. And whereas Cancer Smashers set up a recycling program to pay for all costs to maintain their organization, and whereas Cancer Smashers welcomed home and cheered for World War II veterans at Midway Airport coming back from their honor flights, and whereas Cancer Smashers raised and donated over $50,000 to the Robert H. Lurie Comprehensive Cancer Center, and whereas the fundraisers were hosted through the Darien 61 School District and featured on Rob Johnson and Kate Sullivan's Your Chicago segment on Channel 2 News. And whereas Cancer Smashers volunteered at the Tee Off for a Cure golf fundraiser, and whereas Cancer Smashers hosted a dinner and presentation of the $26,029 check raised by the fundraiser at the schools, and whereas the Smashers volunteered at the Goombay Bash at Navy Pier, where they helped raise over $5 million for cancer research, and whereas the Smashers volunteered at Safety Village 25th anniversary celebration, and whereas the Smashers volunteered at the Darien VFW Walkathon, and whereas the Cancer Smashers received a private tour of the Robert H. Lurie Comprehensive Cancer Center of Northwestern, where they performed activities in the labs, and whereas the Smashers cleaned and helped open the Darien Swim and Recreation Club, and whereas Cancer Smashers learned CPR and how to work the AED equipment, and whereas with the $16,000 raised from one of the Cancer Smasher fundraisers, Northwestern applied for and received a grant for a $90,000 microscope for one of their cancer labs. And whereas the Smashers were awarded the first year's ever Stephen T. Rosen H. Foundation Basic Cancer Research Award that was given to them at the Grand Ballroom of Navy Pier on July 12, 2014. And whereas Northwestern University has set up an award called Cancer Smasher Postdoctoral Fellow, and Cancer Smashers will select the winner from a pool of potential doctors. Now therefore be it resolved by Mayor Weaver and the City Council of the City of Darien that Cancer Smashers is hereby commended for their volunteerism, service to the community, and in their extraordinary efforts to raise money and awareness in the fight against cancer. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Kenny. The roll, please.
Belzak.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
McIver.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Seifert.
Aye.
Mayor Weaver.
Aye.
Clerk Regona, aye. Treasurer Corn.
Aye.
Attorney Murphy.
Aye.
Administrator Vanna.
Yes.
12 unanimous votes.
It's unanimous.
Did so much, can we vote again? A lot of stuff.
Congratulations. I have a feeling that most of the audience is Cancer Smashers. So would you, do we have camera people that were going to take the picture of this large group? Why don't you all come forward and have, and I would like to give you this award.
Wow.
I love seeing kids involved in parties.
Okay, all the tall guys get in the back.
Awesome.
Okay, tall guys in the back. Yeah. Okay. Bev?
How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Actually, Sean's going to say something. I hope you
Yeah, he does.
Okay. All right, so we'll pretend like we're giving you guys the.
A lot of parents taking pictures. Thank goodness for cell phones, huh?
Everybody move to the left now.
Everybody turn around and face Alderman Shower now. Notice how they all responded to that.
Great job.
Hey, how are you? Good.
I don't know if I'm going to get everybody's hand here. Congratulations, everybody. You look familiar.
guys stay with me.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, on behalf of the Cancer Smashers, we'd like to thank each and every one of you for this, and we'd also like to give each and every one of you a Cancer Smasher t-shirt.
Whoa, whoa.
That's me. I actually. Let's go with the blue. Great, thank you.
So, take it, for the guys, take them.
You got another pink one?
I'll take a large.
Does she have a pink one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
you got the mediums. Okay.
Oh, you
All right.
are-
What
I gotta go with
other
orange.
colors you got?
Gotta go with orange.
Okay, I'll take the
He's
yellow
bad.
then. Yeah.
He's bad.
Thank you very much. This is very nice of you. Oh,
I need a large.
Thank you, Kelly.
The green outfit. Yes, thank you.
so sweet.
Thank you.
Hi. What sizes do you have? All right, I'll take a blue.
I had a question.
Job, really impressive. Great job.
She's gonna talk.
So much.
I just wanted to say thank you guys very much for acknowledging the kids.
Your name?
My name is Beth Tischler. My husband Danny and our 4 kids actually started this group a little over 3 years ago. We actually were a part of a bigger organization called the H Foundation, which these kids are actually a spin-off of the H Foundation. Our kids were actually volunteering with the H Foundation, and we had just said, hey, why don't you ask some of your friends if they want to help? Year after year, people were starting to call us, hey, can my kids help? Can my kids help? So we kind of felt we were onto something here. And we grew from approximately 18 kids the very first year to we're well over 50 kids now. So kids want to help. They want to be involved. You just have to ask them to help and they come. So
Yeah.
we've done a lot in 3 years, and we got a lot more work to do, but we're having a great time. So thank you again for
Great
tonight.
job, Beth. This
Thank
is
you.
terrific. Yeah. And thanks for the T-shirts. This is great. We will. We will. Thank you very much. I would expect you would, unless you want to sit through this exciting meeting. Isn't that something? That's really something. Yeah, I know.
Do you think the Historical Society was listening to this?
You get right. It is impressive.
Okay. That was really impressive.
We're used to it.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Enough
Yes.
to entertain ourselves,
Wait,
right?
wait, that happens often. Thank you.
I like this color.
Goes with your eyes.
Well, it's an Illini color.
Yes.
I could never wear the orange. I always wore the blue.
Did you really?
Orange isn't my color.
Now comes the serious stuff.
Okay. Let's move on to the city clerk's report.
I have 2 items, Madam Mayor. City offices will be closed on September the 1st in observance of Labor Day, and our next city council meeting will be held on Tuesday, September the 2nd, at our normal time.
Thank you. Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor Weaver. Scott, why don't you take this time to answer Alderman Kenny's question about the electric?
Yes, residents have now been receiving their first ComEd bills with Verde Energy, our new electric supplier, and they are seeing the increases that we anticipated. There have been a few forces going against us at this point. The first off being higher electric prices to begin with. 2 years ago, we were at an all-time low for electric prices, and we had a real good timing for our bid. We were able to get a 0.454 rate. Since this time, the market's gone up dramatically. There are also some different regulatory charges that have been added as of June 1st, which makes that increase seem even higher. There's a capacity charge that's increased a penny per kilowatt hour, which essentially adds 15% to our increase. The capacity charge is for reserving space to generate electricity during peak times for heavy usage areas. So when the city of Chicago has a very hot summer or a very hot time of the month, ComEd has to pay a premium in order to keep the lights on in those situations. So all of these different driving forces have led to a bid, and we selected the lowest bid out of all of them of 0.753, which is about 70% higher on the electric supply charge than we had a couple years ago. Now, we selected a bid that over the course of the year is anticipated to be just slightly below ComEd's rate. So we are saving residents money if they're not going off on their own and determining what they want to do for their electric supply. Some other residents are finding some other better deals on their own. There are some 6-month pricing options out there right now that get into the 6-cent range. And those are pretty good for those people that have the time and energy and ability to manage their electric bill. They also take somewhat of a risk because at that point they'll also get onto a variable rate, which might be considerably higher than the bid that we had. Another important reason why we selected a contract instead of just going back to the ComEd rate, if a person is on the ComEd rate for more than 2 months now, they must stay on for an entire 12-month period. So we're a good default option if anyone goes off into the private market on their own and can't be on that variable rate, they can always jump back to us instead of being stuck with ComEd for 12 months at a time. So it's an ever-changing market. It is one where we are seeing heavy increases and residents are calling and asking about those, but this really was the best option that we had at this point, and we are still saving slightly over the ComEd rate.
So how is it possible that a resident can negotiate a better deal than we can as a group?
So we went out to bid in March and April. We actually kept an eye on the energy markets all March through early May and selected at the low points during that time in order to sign our deal. Since that point, we've actually had a very cool summer where demand has not been high at all. I actually pulled up ComEd's website right now, and they have programs that show you how much electric costs at this second. So if you wanted to buy real-time electricity, you could, in the last hour, have bought it for 4.3 cents compared with our 7.75. Now, they don't anticipate a summer being so cool that you don't have to run your air conditioning at any point. So that electric market, it's almost, the comparison I like to use is like going to the gas station. I always tend to be the guy that sees the low price at the gas station and say, I'll pick it up on my next trip, and then it jumps up 20 cents. Well, we're kind of doing that, but on a 2-year period. And in this particular instance, we got the low rate 2 years ago, and now we've hit a high part in that market. But we're still locked in for that rate until next June, which is good and bad. With another really difficult winter, we're much better off on this fixed rate than a variable rate.
Do we have the ability to look at any other communities that negotiate electric on their citizens' behalf and see where we're at and compared to them?
We absolutely can. There are a lot of other communities that have a lot of different ways of doing it. We do it with a consultant and go off on our own. There are good things and bad things to join in with other communities. Some other communities have more single-family homes. Some of them have more rental units. Depending on the distribution of energy also, there are different costs and different pricing per unit. So if we teamed up with Downers Grove, that might mean we would get a higher rate if it was just the two of us, whereas if we teamed up with Willowbrook, we might get a better. So there are winners and losers in that situation, but we could put a survey like that together. I can tell you that the last bid that we had, we were the lowest in the state of Illinois for a good period of time. But it all depends on where you hit that bid market.
Okay, thank you.
That variable market that you were just talking about, if someone shops around, how long of a period do they lock that variable rate in for? It's just for the day.
The bi-hourly pricing, you actually pay whatever it costs on the market at that time. So you don't even have a choice as to when you're doing it. You just sign up for the variable rate.
Oh, okay. So then it could jack up all the way to the ComEd rate and then go back down again. It's all over the place.
Well beyond. Also, we actually had a resident that does that over the winter. He came in, and in the winter, we had the highest electric usage January and February in history this year, because with the extreme cold, the fans that were heating the homes, you had natural gas, but you also had fans that were running all the time. And the gas got into 13, 14, 15 cents an hour. So more than triple of what our old bid rate was and around double of what our current rate is. So it's a risk. Right now you'd be winning, and last February you'd be losing pretty heavily. A lot of it depends on weather and a lot of other external forces.
And who applied the regulatory rates that you were talking about? Is that the ICC? Who does that? Who regulates those? Who applies those?
Yes, you're correct. The ICC does that. ComEd has to go in and apply to them with whatever regulatory changes they want. Much of what they do with the regulatory amounts, they either ask for increases or they try to tie some of those increases to some other figure. So they try to tie it to some energy market number that they try to hit. There are a number of other things hitting the bill now at the same time that we could really go on all day about it. There's a purchase electricity agreement, some of the smart meter programs that they're rolling out now. Those are all small additions to the bill, but when you see those in addition to our
They're all itemized on your bill, too, so, yeah.
correct. But the biggest thing that we really want residents to come away with is you may be able to do better with this on your own if you want to track it, but if you stay with the City of Darien program, you're going to be slightly less than ComEd. So if you want to put more effort in, it might be worth your while. If not, we're taking care of that.
It's really, boy, it's really a crapshoot for individuals, really, you know, to, if they take it upon themselves, they could really hurt themselves, too, at the same time.
Yeah, they could hurt themselves. They could help themselves. Some people like taking airline miles as part of their deal, and there are so many different contracts out there. I just warn anyone that does that to read the contract very carefully.
Scott, can you put that in terms of dollars? Because I know the bill is made up of a couple different things, the variable for the electric. So if somebody, had an average bill a year ago of maybe $200, how would that equate to what they have to pay now, you think?
It could get up to about $7 to $10 a bill because it's only for the electric supply charge.
Okay, so when we're talking these large percentages, on my example of the $200, you're thinking that might only be $10 higher than the previous year?
Yeah, something around there. Because it's just, but it all depends on what else is on that bill and those other things. So it's just our small portion of the bill that does that.
Any other questions for Scott? Thanks, Scott.
One other thing on that, if you do actually go and you compare and you take out your old electric bills from 3 years ago and compare them to what you have now, you'll see probably about a 15% increase from that 3 years till now. So while there's a 78% increase now, it's also a 15% increase from about 3 years ago. So as you see a big drop in the energy prices in our billing a few years ago, really we're coming back to where we were and then having an increase on top of that.
Scott, how much did we save as a city? How many millions of dollars was it?
About $2.7 million, about $360 a household over those 2 years.
2 years, yeah. Yep. Okay, let's move on to department head, city administrator report.
That concludes,
was
yeah,
it?
that was
Okay.
all. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, department head information.
Mayor, here's a handout I handed out earlier at the Municipal Services Committee meeting.
Sure.
I'll give you a copy.
Okay. You can share. You saw it before? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, City Council and our viewing residents at home and our reporter here this evening. Tonight I want to talk to you about an item that's going to be on the agenda under new business, and this is for several ditch projects that staff is looking for an additional $190,000 in funding. Particularly the ditch projects that have fallen short are Capitol Drive, 68th Street, as well as Cyrus Road. First question, the foremost question, why the cost overruns? Several reasons. The budget for the projects did not include additional pipe and materials to bury pipe. Our real goal is to come into these neighborhoods, these rural sections, and provide what's referred to as a slope of 2%. So lo and behold, that usually means that that's an optimal flow for ditches to flow properly without causing nuisance ponding, et cetera, et cetera. In many of the situations, after we went out there and did the field layout, we identified sags within certain blocks, 68th Street, but I'll get to that in a minute. So again, with that, we need an additional material. The material obviously related to other expenses from there on, more or less a domino effect. During the excavations of many of the projects, additional pipe was found underground, and it was necessary, again, to remove and replace those for optimal flow. Again, the sag points, and again, I'll show you those in a minute, what I mean by sag points, also referred to as low points on surrounding residential properties. Each project, again, increased for its own specific merits, and basically it related back to trucking, stone, pipe, and installation services. This is a unique, a unique example on Capitol. This was a situation here, and I'll refer to it through a pointer here. This area right here had several mature trees, basically the size of what you see here, along with a fence. On Capitol specifically, the water drained from each end of the block back towards the middle and in through this residence side yard. This was part of a project that wasn't contemplated earlier in the year. After we got to speaking with the resident more throughout the year, saw the project started happening. The resident got more so involved, and they basically forwarded us an easement or committed to an easement for us to be able to do some work and dedicate the easement to which we had the right to go in there. So we were able to put this storm sewer system in there and to be able to take water away from her versus water coming into her property, adjacent properties, which obviously caused them problems. Also, we looked at this earlier in the year for a rear yard drainage project, and that rear yard drainage project was cost prohibitive, especially with all the elements that were in the back, from mature trees to fences to sheds, et cetera, et cetera. So this is basically a $5,000 increase, which is, again, de minimis in the grand scheme of things. This is Elm Street. Elm Street looking towards Capitol. So in this particular case, our goal, again, was to stop at Capitol. This along here is Elm, and this is the basin, if you want to say, that we bought the homes from years ago in conjunction with DuPage County. So all the stormwater, local stormwater, basically travels into this basin here. With that said, our original intent was to stop at Capitol. After we did the field layouts and the additional low points that were identified, as spoken of earlier, we needed to increase the pipe down Elm, across the streets, and back into here. Our original goal was to come in and basically stop at Capitol to let the water free fall via ditch back into the creek, which is right across the street from this point right here. In conjunction with that, we found out that this road is off-center. By saying off-center, we only had 10 feet at best from the edge of the road, so we had to come back to the city council for additional easement. Once we received that easement, we identified that we couldn't put the pipe that we typically put in there due to a conflict with the water main. Per EPA requirements, we need to use specialized pipe, which is referred to as pressure pipe. That doubled the cost on a lot of the pipe material, especially for this run. This is another thing that we do, and this again is de minimis in the grand scheme of things. This is referred to as erosion control. At these outfalls, we obviously have a lot of water that's traveling from upstream to downstream, and this is the exit for it. Obviously, this water comes out at such a charge that we want to be able to protect what's around it so we don't get future erosion control, washouts, and that sort of animal that we have to deal with. 68th Street. On 68th Street, one of the things that we identified is typically when we go and look on paper, we say, all right, we know that we're going to excavate or do so much ditch grading. Typically, it's 12 feet wide. This part from here to right about here is approximately 30 feet wide. On 68th Street, as well as Iris, we found out that we were taking out a lot more dirt than was anticipated. Again, why? Over the years, residents, builders came in and basically put dirt in, and it wasn't compensated for the guy upstream or downstream, whatever the case is. So we basically came back in here and we're restoring it to grade. As far as the sag point, I referred to a sag point earlier. If you look at a bird's eye view, say right from about here, looking back towards the east, you'll see a dip in the road. A little hard to see, but if you travel the road, this dip right here, our original intent was for the water to come down via ditch line, open ditch. Ended up being that we had to put in additional pipe just due to that sag point or low point because we could not get the optimal flow. Then by not getting the optimal flow, what will happen is within a year, 2 years, Residents will start maintaining their right-of-way. Riding mower, all of a sudden the riding mower starts to sink within that ditch area because it's still saturated. Well, a couple more times, all of a sudden you have water holding. Next thing you know, you have additional water holding, so on and so forth, and we're back to where we are today. Not as severe, but it's still, we want to make sure we're doing the optimal job. Again, this just shows some of the dirt and sod that's being, we're currently restoring the site. This is happening within the today, as a matter of fact. So again, this is some of the extra sod and topsoil that it takes to get the job done. This is Dale Basin looking west from on 68th Street towards Clarendon Hills Road. The scope of the work here was not anticipated. And the reason we had included this scope, there's a resident here on the corner that basically had a conversation with me in regards to what happens when it rains and when, and basically what it was is that his sump pump was being inundated by the amount of water that was charging around his home. Now, this section right here, if anybody recalls, it used to have two pipes. Basically, they were two 12-inch pipes. What we did is we eliminated those pipes as well as the pipes upstream and put what's referred to as a reinforced concrete pipe. This is reinforced concrete pipe, RCP. Those other pipes were put in there, and the elevation that they were put in was a little bit higher, so it wasn't, again, the optimal flow. By doing this now, it gave us the opportunity to put in the right pipe, and this pipe will not float. And again, RCP pipe is designed for areas where you can't put conventional pipe due to potential floating. In other words, the pipe will come up out of the grounds, as well as within certain roadways. IDOT, Illinois Department of Transportation, uses this type of pipe frequently. This is Iris Road, as we recall, back on April 18th, 2013. Here's another area. This is the area on the north side. Christopher Burke Engineering had engineered this for us. This was a water modeling study. The water modeling study basically gave us the ingredients, what we needed to fulfill the project on the north side. On the south side, staff took it upon themselves to basically get the readings. When we reviewed it on paper, it worked. In other words, we were looking at bringing most of the flow. There was going to be a bidirectional flow. Part of it was going to be back towards Crest. The other part was going to be coming back down high. With that said, on the field, out in the field, we basically found out that all the flow had to come back down to the down to the west, back into Dale Basin. Our other alternative that we looked at was potentially putting pipes across the street and tying them into the north side, which that pipe was deeper. When it was all said and done, it became more expensive to start doing cross cuts across the roadways in other locations. Again, here's a picture of what's referred to as the final grading. This final grading, again, keep in mind, typically our cross sections are about 12 foot maximum. They've been increased quite significantly on 68th Street as well as Iris Road. So in summary, what you have in front of you is a Excel spreadsheet. And that Excel spreadsheet relates to all the costs and what were the driving factors of each project. Capital Drive, in a nutshell, we basically have a $54,000 additional cost. Our funding, approved funding, was $184,000. The cost of this project proposed is $238,000. 68th Street saw a $56,500 increase. That increased the budget from $241,500 to $298,000 for this project. Iris Road is a $79,500 cost increase. And again, that was basically due to the pipe on the south side as well as the pressure pipe, because again, the water main was in conflict with EPA requirements. Project was designated to be at $255,000, where we will end up being at $334,500 for a grand total of $190,000 for the three projects. Thank you.
Any questions for Dan? Alderman MacGyver?
Dan, on two of these three projects, the largest line item is trucking, and it looks like the unit is hourly. How do we monitor that? And on one of the projects, it went from anticipated 56 hours to 330. How do you know that that's legitimate?
Couple things. Number one, trucking. I did reduce some of the trucking time this year. I thought we could do a little better as far as the time goes. Unfortunately, that worked against us. Number one is the trucks are going out to basically Route 53 and Boulton Road, right in that vicinity over there. Boulton Road is currently under construction. There's some construction going on there, so that is basically added to the trucking time, 15 to 20 minutes round trip, or round robin as they refer to it in the field. In conjunction with that, there's a lot more loads that are coming out. So basically, we have doubled the cost for the trucking, if not 2.5 times more in some cases. And the way it's done is it's monitored through, we know what it takes in order to make a round robin. Usually it's about an hour round trip. By the time the truck comes out to the site, we do loading one of two ways. Depending on the operation for a grading, the operator will load the semi up immediately. When it's a slower operation, it's just on removing and replacing pipe and excavating. In that case, all the material is transferred via our trucks to our public workshop, in which case then we'll call a semi in, or semis, and have them loaded out, and they come to the shop. So everybody averages about an hour. Right now, that time has been increased.
Okay. And then the second question is the sod and topsoil included in all of these? Because I've seen some notes that say remaining items, topsoil and sod. Are there additional change orders coming?
The answer is no. And that's where the contingency is on here for a couple of them, with the exception of Capitol. No contingency is required. 68th Street and Iris, $5,000 contingency has been requested.
So in other words, we might not hit the $190,000 mark.
That is correct, Mayor.
Alderman Marquez?
Dan, you mentioned under municipal services that what you found, we asked the question, when we start looking at these in the future and we start planning projects under the next budget year, how is this going to impact our looking at those future projects? And Dan's response to that was that in this case, some of the smaller streets, some of the smaller ditch repair projects have actually been harder and created more problems for us than some of the larger ones. Because this is really the first year in a number of years that we've had to come back and ask for such significant dollars. You want to explain that a little bit further,
Sure.
why?
One of the things that we looked at, as Alderman Marquez mentioned, and I mentioned earlier at the Public Works Committee meeting this evening, the ditches that we're doing now, they seem to be more compact. When we were doing the other ones over the course of the years, they were on larger streets, so we had more, I'll say more leniency for grade, whereas we're taking the smaller arteries, and we're leading them into the bigger arteries, and the smaller arteries seem to be a little more complex than what was anticipated. For example, is limited right-of-way. In addition to the sag points or the low points, we haven't found as many low points as we have on Capitol, Iris, and 68th Street in the past. By doing it on paper, the optimal flow looked pretty good. If I was to do it again, look at it, I would be doing the same thing. Based on what came to light now, I know we would be looking at potentially taking a vendor, in this case, maybe even Scorpio Construction, having preliminary layouts with him prior to the budget to make sure staff and what a contractor is seeing out there, that we have some better representation on these, I'll call them tighter projects. In conjunction with that, the trucking, obviously, we need to be a little more cognizant on the trucking part of it and increase the time appropriately and try to forecast what's going to be under construction. I think we all know Cass Avenue, 75th Street, what we anticipated to travel through prior to during construction, is night and day difference.
Dan, Alderman MacGyver asked about, any more potential change orders, but you caught this at a time where you've projected the projects that are finished as well as the projects you still need to do. So again, you weren't coming after the fact, which is really why we the municipal services had a special meeting, we're coming to the council right away, because as you manage these projects, you were able to tell at a point certain now that you were hitting the limit of the projects.
That's correct. A lot of the invoices are forthcoming because the work is done already. So as I'm doing my forecasting, basically on a weekly basis, I'm identifying projects, with the exception of capital, that it's over already. So within the next bill run, a significant amount of this work will be completed, and we will be hitting that overage. Again, we're looking at trying to balance. We always try to balance projects and cover where we can. Unfortunately, that didn't work in our favor this time.
While it's not as significant as it has been in past years, what Dan has mentioned is some of the projects that we finished, like Gale and some of the others, will show small cost savings. Nothing like we've seen in the past. You mentioned like 12,000, 14,000 on one, maybe 20, 25,000 on another. So we'll see some of that, and by no means will that outweigh this, but we are going to see some cost savings on some of the other projects.
And that is correct. Gale Avenue, for example, we'll see a $20,000 savings. The road program, we have, while the bills are coming in, finalizing those, we'll probably see about a $22,000 savings in conjunction with a couple other projects that we've seen so far, $17,000. But we want to be very cautious with those savings because we still have a lot of projects out there. We're only at the midway mark, and we have a lot of critical projects remaining. Kentwood Bridge, for example, the Public Works facility structural repair. So these are all structural repair elements. And again, while we feel there's no indication of any alarms, we want to be very cautious and make sure that we're presenting everything properly.
Alderman Shower?
Yeah, Dan, you might want to mention a little bit more about the construction. Obviously, everybody knows about how bad it is on 75th and Cass, but when it comes to trucks and hauling, they have to go down these routes for permits and so forth. You want to go into that a little bit more and so forth?
Parts of it, and we try, number one, is we look at where the trucks are going. We also go look at, when we bid out the work, okay, which dump sites are we going to? So there's basically 3 dump sites in this area that are cost effective. Then, along with that, it depends what the processing time is into these facilities. If they're, what they do in many of these facilities, they have a sniffer. Okay, a sniffer basically something that's a tool that goes in the back of a truck, and if it's contaminated, some levels of contamination, natural contamination, set off these things a lot quicker than other facilities do. Why? I don't have that answer. They're more strict with their EPA requirements. We've been very fortunate to work with EF Heil, and as far as the trucking goes, they're probably the closest in comparison to the other two.
Alderman McIver?
Did I hear correctly that this is to approve money that for work that's already been completed?
Yes, part of it is, whereas the sod is currently going down, topsoil and sod is currently being worked on as we speak on 68th Street. On Iris, we're currently doing the grading, and we're currently in the process of doing the asphalt or the restoration for the aprons and driveways. That's going to be starting up again tomorrow, as well as, again, like I said, the grading and the sod and dirt.
Is that our standard business practice to do that?
I
mean, what if the council voted no?
I don't think it's clear. I think, Brian, did you want to?
Yeah, just to clarify, Dan, I think if you took all your ditch projects, all the money that was budgeted for the ditch projects, we're hitting that point. So if the council said, stop the ditch projects now, the bills that come through would exhaust the budget.
That's correct.
So
we're not over.
We're not.
No.
We haven't spent. Okay.
Yeah.
No,
I just
I
want to
think-
make sure.
I know he didn't
Yeah,
explain it.
that's what I was trying to
confusing.
clarify,
Yeah.
actually, with Alderman McIver's question.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
whatever the budget amount, Dan is managing the project and saying, we've hit that limit on the budget. In order to finish the projects, we need to get additional budgeted funds from the council.
Alderman Belke?
And also, what we talked about is, the reserve balance that we keep in the capital projects fund of $500,000, and then also, which will be coming, early next month maybe, will be the audit, the fiscal year 4/30/14 audit, which shows that there will be additional amounts in the general fund of about $400,000 that could be moved over to this account to help offset that. And then also in our meeting today, Alderman Seifert, you said something about on a percentage basis for the total capital fund, with this variance. What?
Yeah, I mean, I just
what was-
commented that this is a pretty significant increase for these three projects. It's 27%, I think, something like that. But in the overall scheme of the budget, it's really not as drastic as it seems, because it's, your total budget is.
A little bit over three, I don't know, I don't have the figures, a little bit
Right.
over 3 million, maybe
Right,
even
so-
4 million
so
stock
180,000,
capital.
190,000?
90 on a couple million is different than 190 on
Right, right.
$600,000. So just to keep that in mind.
Alderman Kenny?
One of the things that Mr. Gombach had done, based on some of my votes I've made as of late, he talked with me and drove me out to all the projects. And and I got a chance to meet some of the contractors and got to ask questions, and I got to see what was going on. And when you ask one contractor, what are you seeing, and he tells you it's amazing what they're finding. They're surprised about what they're finding. And then I go talk to another individual, and my dad, God rest his soul, used to always say, 2 idiots can't tell you the same lie twice. So I mean, everything what we're hearing is consistent. They're digging into things. They're finding things that were not planned. We all know Capitol's. That's the street where the one lady last year on the April 18th. That's the one where the house flooded really, really bad. So I got a chance to go out there with my 2 eyes and see, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I said to Dan earlier, that, all of this area was developed under the county, and so when they start digging, they're just finding some amazing things. So we just found a few on this project. Any other questions for Dan? All right, I think the chief wants to give an overview of his report. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I'm going to give a brief report that covers the period from June 30th through the July 27th. Front of the issue is the Park District issue that the gentleman spoke about here. We've tried our best to balance the goals of park usership and maintaining good relationships with the residents. I've been out personally on any number of occasions. I've looked at it. I've talked to some of the residents along 71st Street. The issue is that the north side of 71st Street, where the residents live, is tagged with no parking in 2 different locations. On the easternmost end, it's to prevent traffic from being impeded turning into 71st Street or going out onto Clarendon Hills Road. Parking in that area would limit vision sufficiently enough to be a public safety hazard. There's a second sign just slightly west of that location in front of 406. Since the other residents don't have no parking, that was the sign that was covered, and parking enforcement was suspended at that location. What we did on last Wednesday is we placed Public Works and myself, Dan Salvato was out, we're both out there, and we placed temporary signs along the south side from the point where the diagonal parking starts that would prohibit parking from that point all the way east to Clarendon Hills Road. In the past, there had been parking on both sides, and that narrowed the street sufficiently, again, to cause a public safety hazard. And I'm informed that buses frequently turn off of Clarendon Hills Road onto 71st Street. So that opened up the roadway. In addition to that, we had a Park District employee who was assisting our Park District officer in making sure that nobody parked along that way. Since that time, I've been told that the parking problem has migrated from just on Wednesdays for Farmers Market Day to other days as well. And so I suppose the question at hand is my idea, and certainly this isn't unilateral, this is my professional opinion based on what I've seen so far, is because the other residents along 71st Street aren't afforded a no parking area, that we remove the one sign in front of 406 and certainly keep the parking restrictions on the south side, as well as the area that would create a public safety hazard nearest Clarendon Hills Road.
Chief, on the north, what you just said on the north side, that equates to 4 additional cars being able to park that aren't under the current signs?
Probably 3 or
Pro-
4,
Three or
yes.
four, about that amount.
At the most, I wouldn't
Yeah.
even say 3 or 4. I would say maybe 2 would be additional parking. Because after those 2 no parking signs that are the closest to Clarendon Hills Road, there is a driveway and then
Yes.
the sign, that
That's
additional
correct.
sign. So I don't think there's maybe 2 more parking spaces there at the most.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Kenny, let's,
Yeah, I'm trying to get my mind around what you just said. You said that you restricted parking last week on the south side of 71st Street where the parallel parking
No.
is typically.
no.
Where the the diagonal parking begins
Right.
eastbound to Clarendon Hills Road.
You prohibited the parking there.
Yes, sir.
So, but they could still park on the north side of the street with the covered signs that you had.
The one covered sign. It was just one covered sign.
So why would you allow parking there on a sign that they're already talking about and prohibit on the other side of the street? I'm not grabbing that.
The parking closest to Clarendon Hills Road, we didn't tamper with.
Right.
The parking in front of the one resident's home, that's the parking that we eliminated, ceased enforcement for that particular day. We didn't remove the sign.
Right.
But the rationale being is that the residents west along 71st Street don't have a prohibition. So there was I was able to find no historical basis for having that sign in place. It just simply didn't make sense to me.
So Chief, on the north and south, there's no parking from Clarendon Hills Road to the west, about the same distance?
No, actually, it's extended further because where the diagonal parking starts, the curbside juts out so that it creates a narrowing of the street if you park cars there. There are no spaces for parking, for
Correct.
parallel parking there. So it creates a narrowing of the street at that point.
Alderman Belke.
Okay, so for the 402 sign, you mentioned that, I'm not quite sure if you're going to leave that sign or replace it
No.
that says no parking from here to corner.
It's going to stay there.
Stay
The sign, the parking prohibition will remain. We want to modify the sign so that it's clear. Right now, it says no parking anytime. So that's not really clear what that means, whether it's right in front of the sign or from the sign to the corner. And what we want to do is change it so it says that no parking from this point back to Clarendon Hills Road.
So it'll just be a replacement of this sign?
Yes.
to say- Okay,
Yes.
got it. And then, so the 406 sign that's there, I guess, like you said, there's no history with it. There's, you looked at the area, there's no safety hazard. However, since there will be allowed no parking on the south side, then that would help the congestion of the width of the street.
Yes.
If we put that sign, if we took that sign in front of 406 away.
That's
so,
correct.
So the idea is, why would he get special preference to not have anyone in front of his house when all these other residents face the same thing? Because there's no safety hazard anymore, because the street's wider and then there's going to be no parking on the south side. That's
Exactly.
the intention there.
That is the intention.
Now, a lot of the complaints I got wasn't necessarily that people were parking there. I'm not talking about 402, that's a different complaint.
Right.
I mean, that's just black and white. The 406 one, more of the complaints were also, hey, well, why is the sign there then? Why don't you just take it away if you're not going to enforce it?
Exactly.
So it wasn't necessarily, I don't want them here, it's a hazard. It was more, why is it there if you're not enforcing it? So it was just inconsistency and just not understanding, confusion. So this would, I think help that confusion part. To what the resident said earlier, I think we could explore as well, like he said, maybe the 72nd situation and maybe look at the history of what the no parking, kind of built up over there, because I agree that there could be, we need more outlets for people to park. And the other one is Roger. I mean, Rogers has no restrictions right now, and it's still a pretty nice, close avenue to park there. And I just don't think residents are familiar with looking at that street.
One of the things Mr. Vanna and I talked about when we discussed this issue earlier today is maybe discussing with the park, it's probably too late for this year, but maybe having the vendors, as opposed to taking the parking space, the parking lot in the park, is having the vendors set up along the sidewalk as opposed to in the grass. So that would kind of eliminate the need to restrict the parking lot or eliminate the parking lot, and it would allay their concerns about the sod being torn up with the vehicles driving across it. So that's one of the things that we had discussed, having that discussion with the park after this season was over.
The issue, Mr. Michna brought up the issue of moving the farmer's market over to a Fairview and 75th Street, and I don't agree. I don't think there's sufficient parking there.
Well, actually,
Although the parking lot across the street, if we could get permission from them, that might help the situation.
actually, Mayor, we did discuss that with the gentleman from the park who was out there, who was not admittedly not in a decision-making position. But what he said is there's no electricity out there, and it would cost tons to put an electrical box there in the
That's one of the
larger
issues.
park. So that was one of the issues that he
Yeah.
said.
I think, I know that you spent some time, I wasn't able to get to the farmer's market this week, this past Wednesday, but I've been there for most of the other ones, so I was out there watching and monitoring the parking myself. But I think that what you tried to impress upon the residents, and I think I mentioned it tonight, is, this is a temporary thing. And we hope that they can see that this is so much positive stuff going on in the park that we're keeping away the elements that the residents themselves on 71st Street identified 2 years ago. And I hope that they weigh that and think that this might be okay to live with for the summertime.
I can't impress enough based on over 30 years of law enforcement experience, what happens when a public park goes unused, because the positive activity we see there now will be quickly displaced with negative activity if there aren't positive uses for the park and people who are intent on really enjoying the park.
I was surprised that the resident didn't bring up Darien Fest. I thought that would have been a bigger cross for them to bear than even the farmers market, but he didn't bring that one up. But
I ran into Chris Sant at the grocery store, and we talked about that a little bit. And Chris's take on that was they can deal with it for 1 week out of
Yeah.
the year, and they can tolerate that.
Yeah.
But to go a whole summer once a week, it's dragging. For them it's irritating, and I might feel the same way if I lived over there.
The only thing I can add on that is, at least with Darien Fest, you have Clarendon Hills Road cut off. So there's not a lot of trafficking
That's true.
unless you live there. So if you live there, you're going slow and you're just going home. It's a little more mellow that way. And that might be another thing maybe to explore if there's so many things going on at the park and we don't, maybe we can close off a little portion of the Clarendon Hills, to allow parking or to allow people walking in the street. Or I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if it makes sense, but just thinking out loud.
Well, my whole point in spending so much effort on this is that I don't want the public to think that the police department is abdicating its role for enforcement. We're just trying to find the healthiest balance and healthiest mix of how to promote and stimulate park usership and how to be neighbor friendly as well. So that's the whole issue here.
Yeah, and I would consider it a work in progress still. So,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want any resident to think that we're done because we're still getting our thoughts together and feedback. So,
Exactly.
I think I mentioned that when he was when Mr. Mitchell was here, that we're going to keep trying.
Okay.
Chief, yes, go ahead, Chief.
Different topic, or are we still?
Well, your report.
Okay.
I did have a question, but I think you were going to go into that.
Yes, ma'am, I can answer it.
Well,
I hope I
on
can.
page 3 of your report, when you were talking about the detective stats, you mentioned that that there was 4 cases that were closed, 2 were closed by arrest and prosecution, and 2 cases were exceptional closed. What do you mean by that?
An exceptional clearance is when we have an offender and we find evidence we didn't catch him in the act and things like that. So that's what an exceptional clearance is, when we don't necessarily catch someone in the act.
But how does that close it then?
Because we know who did it.
Okay.
In this particular case, we found evidence that indicated that he had, from the cars that were broken into.
So you have an answer to that, but you have to wait for him to do it again and catch him.
No, well, under ordinary circumstances, without divulging too much of what went on, this person would be prosecuted even with the exceptional clearance.
So there's an arrest with the
Yeah,
exceptional.
there is an arrest with the exceptional clearance,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
For last period, we had a pretty sizable fireworks display in Darien that was illegal, and we ultimately made an arrest of a 44-year-old Darien resident who had professional grade pyrotechnics and had put on quite a show. And they used 2 of the GoPro cameras to videotape his illegal activities. Well, both of the cameras were confiscated. One was at the base of the fireworks display, if I'm correct, Greg, and the other was actually used to show the fireworks. It was attached to the offender's body. So I can't tell you, number one of the things that we want to impress upon the residents is fireworks are dangerous on their surface and best left to the wiles of a pyrotechnics expert, and they're illegal, and they can kill and maim in the wrong hands, and so it's not something we should be doing. In addition to that, he could have started a fire in someone's home, or it's just bad news all the way around. Moving right along, the police testing, we gave the written portion of our sergeant's promotional examination, and we had 11 candidates who successfully passed phase 1. So we'll be moving to phase 2 on the 3rd and 4th of September, and that will be the oral assessment. And shortly thereafter, probably within 45 days or so, we should have a sergeant's list and be ready to promote to fill the vacancy left by Dave Stock. On the 23rd, we will be hosting a police entry test at Hinsdale South High School. That's this coming Saturday at about 8 o'clock in the morning. So myself, Sergeant Charay, probably Deputy Chief Cooper, and some of the other command staff will be there to greet the candidates. On a real positive note, one of our young officers, Austin Jump, found that they were demolishing Carmelite Village and took it upon himself to inquire as to whether we could use portions of it prior to demolition to teach building entry techniques, building clearing techniques, and so the entire patrol division was trained on these techniques that he learned from several schools that we've sent him to. It was a pretty aggressive undertaking for a young patrolman. I think Jump has about 6 years on the police department now, and the effort was coordinated by a couple of our sergeants. So it was a kudos to Officer Jump. We talked about the detective cases. We concluded the month with 45 cases, 30 cases from 2014. 25 from 2013, 2 still being investigated from 2012, and 1 from 2011. Those include thefts, burglaries, burglary to motor vehicle, 3 hit and runs, 2 robberies, and 2 death investigations, among others. We've, in terms of crime fighting and crime prevention, we forged a new relationship with the Department of Homeland Security. One of the ASACs, special agents in charge, is former Chicago police officer. Ran into him. He found out I was a chief here, and formed an impromptu relationship so that they will be using our K9. The good thing about that is that on a lot of their efforts, they seize monies. And so whatever our dog participates in, we'll be able to seize money and add that to our seizure account. We're continuing to work with our sister agencies to make sure that we get the most information. We recently got information that a violent offender was being released from the penitentiary. Subject was serving time for attempted murder, and he's being released to Darien. And so we followed up with the Department of Corrections and found out there are not geographic, daytime and nighttime restrictions. The person will be wearing an ankle bracelet. And our crime analyst formulated a bulletin to our officers to talk about the restrictions and what behavior could violate his bail, his parole conditions. And so we submitted that, published that bulletin and got it out to the officers, and that's the kind of thing we want to do in terms of crime prevention. We've also coordinated a receipt of a warrant list, which is interesting. We contacted DuPage County and got a list of active criminal warrants in Darien, and for a city this size, we had 142 active criminal warrants, and so we're going to begin a process of going out and arresting those people for those outstanding warrants.
What do those warrants entail? I mean, what types of
They run the gamut from traffic and DUI warrants to burglary, theft, identity theft, things like that, aggravated battery, domestic batteries, and things like that. So we don't have any extremely serious, no murders or
No.
robberies or rapes or anything like that, but quite a few warrants. We recently had two officers, Nick Squares and Joe Pastic. Joe Pastic's our new officers. One of our new officers completed crime-free housing training. Shortly, we'll be training the property managers in their portion of it, and we may have to push back a little bit. We will certainly have to push back from our September the 1st implementation point, but we should be ready closer probably to December 1st. In terms of crime, we had 9 BMVs. You'll see from the newsletter that I list the 9 BMVs, burglaries to motor vehicles, for the 7th period as a failure of Team Darien. And I say that because we continue to get burglaries to the motor vehicle where the vehicles are being left unlocked. And so basically we're facilitating the crime because we haven't done all the steps that we can take, both as citizens and the police department. And so from our end, we're increasing our effort to see what we can do, what more we can do with our discretionary time, while at the same time we're looking for the citizens to start locking their cars and securing their belongings, because it takes away the opportunity that's necessary for a burglary to motor vehicle offender to do what he does. We are also still fielding complaints about various scams. One of the latest scams that Sergeant Charest just informed me about earlier is an Easy Pass scam, where you'll get a call to check your balances on your Easy Pass, and if you click on it, it either submits creates a virus in your computer, or it steals your identity by clicking on the tab. So if you get an Easy Pass, and especially if you don't have an Easy Pass, don't click on anything on the page. We're also getting the phone calls with kids under arrest, and they're soliciting bond money. If your kid's under arrest, your kid's going to get a call. So don't give any money to any strangers telling you some loved one is in custody in need of bond money. We also have one with a Microsoft person, and we're still getting the one with the IRS or the Federal Crime Commission. So we be mindful. Don't just automatically start giving your personal information, your credit card data to strangers. We're looking at school starting back pretty soon, and we want all of our motorists to be mindful of the kids in the roadway. We don't want any of our kids hurt as we move towards the start of school. We talked about in terms of crime, we have an increase in overall crime for the period of 10, which represents a 19% increase. That increase is largely fueled by the burglaries to motor vehicles, domestic violence, and drug offenses. 15% increase in 911 calls during the comparison of the same time period last year, with 87 more calls this year than last year. 7 more domestic violence calls, 28 more house checks, 33 more suspicious activity, 71 more business checks. At 71 adult arrests, is an increase of 13 over the period, and 1 less juvenile arrest. The 911 calls, 37% or 240 on days, 46% 295 on afternoons, and 102 or 16% on midnights. And that concludes my report.
I'm just curious, in reading all these statistics, especially domestic violence, which is something I'm keenly aware of, and that it happens a lot in Darien. There was 101, year-to-date, 101 incidents of domestic violence, but then I only see 9 arrests year-to-date.
Some of those are calls that are mitigated. We've had quite a few domestic calls involving children fighting with their parents, and it's really odd. It's listed as a domestic. Oftentimes, it just doesn't fly. On some other occasions, we have a domestic where a report is taken, and then later on complaints aren't signed, or either we will arrest them later on a warrant or something.
Chief, one question with regard to the officer statistics. When you look at there's a column in there that goes self-initiated. Explain to me what they go out and they find something on their own?
Yes, sir, that's exactly what it
That's
means.
exactly what it is?
Yes, sir. And it can be a traffic stop. What we find out is our officers are very much sensitized to looking for suspicious vehicles, suspicious people because of the burglaries and the burglaries to motor vehicles. And so we get a lot of investigations. One of the other things that our officers have I shouldn't say become, but are extremely good at is noting open doors and open windows. Just last night, we had an officer who found a trunk open way into the past the midnight hour, and she closed the trunk and left one of the red hangers for burglary to the motor vehicle informational hangers, so that the motorists could find it. But she locked up the car. We've had any number of officers who found open doors during the course of their, especially open garage doors during the course of their patrol. And those are the kind of things that they self-initiate. There's no call on that. It's just their observational skills as they do their patrols.
Do you have an expectation when you look at the number of patrol shifts worked by an officer and the stats for that individual? I mean, if you have somebody who's worked 20 shifts and has lower numbers than everybody else, are you saying to yourself something's wrong there, or
Well,
how do you look at that?
That's one of the metrics that we look at. Certainly, I have to consider what hours they worked. Certainly, an officer on the midnights is not going to have the same number as a different officer. So we have to take a lot of factors into account. If they've worked 20, in fact, the 20 shifts that's required of them, then we're certainly taking a look at that. And two of our sergeants, Steve Liss and Ed Rinka, have done a yeoman's job on identifying deficiencies or finding out why there's a deficiency and taking moves on it. And the entire command staff is headed in that same direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's one officer on the afternoon shifts that's a real rock star there with the number of self-initiated.
Yes.
That's one of our new officers, Officer Camacho, and so she is assertive, and she's looking to do good things here, and we're looking for her to do good things.
Yeah, I noticed another female officer too, Officer Zimney too, has a.
Officer Zimney has a track since I've been here. She and I'm sure before, but she's a real go-getter. So she's also the officer again who doesn't get a lot of credit, but she's the officer who's facilitated for the last 3 years the Cop on the Roof event that we have down near Dunkin' Donuts, and she physically set on the roof. And so this year there was a glitch in it. We hope to be back on site for next year.
Right. Any other questions for the chief? Alderman Belke?
Can you go over the chart that's your community engagement one with the vehicle burglary hang-ons, and then there's number of engagements and then by minutes?
Yes, ma'am. What we've asked the officers to do is we're moving towards a community policing, a community-oriented policing model to marry to our management and accountability model. And so what we're doing is we're looking for officers to do things that engage the community more. So when you're on patrol, we expect you to walk and talk or do something that engages the community more. And this is just an effort to kind of quantify community engagement.
So some of these are residents' houses, right?
Some of them are residents' homes. Some of them are commercial businesses where we get out and talk to folks and what have you. They may have done a speaking engagement, or they may have walked the block hanging door hangers on for burglaries or
So they randomly pick locations to walk through and hang these.
I wouldn't say random, because what we do is we use our intelligence in terms of where incidents are occurring.
Okay, so these are targeted areas where
Yes, ma'am.
there may be more.
Yes.
Okay.
Alderman Kenny?
Chief, I know we discussed it earlier, and I know it's a sensitive subject, but can you touch about some of the things you see down in Franklin, Missouri? And, you know, if something were like that to happen here in Darien, what have you got, as your plan, moving forward when you see different things in different communities?
I think it's Ferguson.
Ferguson.
You're talking about
I'm sorry, Ferguson, forgive me.
The first thing that we've done is we've taken steps. Early monitoring is the key. When you look at some of the historical perspectives on Ferguson, you find that there were things that should have been going on that weren't weren't actually taking place, such as an early warning system documenting all complaints. One of the things that was met with some angst when I first got here was documenting every complaint. Now, every complaint certainly does not need to be investigated. For example, a complaint where a complainant is alleging that they should not have been issued a ticket. We document that complaint, but we don't investigate it because the purpose for the courts is so they can adjudicate whether a ticket was issued rightfully or in error or through a mistake. But having an early warning system is key, documenting every complaint, because documenting every complaint establishes a pattern, making sure that we track our resistance, our use of force. Whenever we have to go hands-on or whenever force is used to effect an arrest, we document that, keep a running log of that, which officers are involved. We now also enter that data into Guardian tracking. And included in Guardian tracking, that's the system that we showed you guys at a police committee meeting several months ago, is an early warning system. So if an officer has 3 incidents of use of force in a 90-day period, it flags it, and we have to take some supervisory action based on that, or the flag remains. And so those are the kind of things that will prevent us from being in that situation. Training. We recently implemented a script for our officers stopping a motorist. And that script simply involves the officer identifying himself as Officer so-and-so from the Darien Police Department. I've stopped you for whatever the infraction is, and may I see your driver's license and your insurance, please? And that goes a long way towards, first off, lending control to the officer, giving respect to the motorist, and making sure that the exchange doesn't degenerate from the point of initial contact.
Should, we'll say one of our top officers or one of our good officers, kind of similar to the situation that I guess this officer down in Ferguson was awarded some kind of award, and he's supposed to be a good officer, but they still run into a situation. How do we, work on something along? So, if in case the community, reacts negatively to a situation, and are we ready for that? Is all I'm asking.
We're certainly ready. First off, the transparency with the community is essential, and I think our monthly report, our constant communication, moving towards a community-oriented policing environment, all make us more transparent to the community and place us in closer contact to the community. Quite frankly, the verdict should still be out on Ferguson County because we really don't know what happened down there. We have several versions or several accounts of what happened, but we really don't know what's happened. Quite frankly, having been a field officer, I've been on the scene of incidents where a witness will develop a story that runs completely counter to what actually happened, and that witness account is sometimes taken at face value. And so we have to be mindful that the verdict still should be out because the investigation has not been completed, not the investigation from Ferguson, nor the investigation from the federal government, the Department of Justice. And one of the reasons why I think that the DOJ entered so swiftly is because of the historical problems with Ferguson.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for the chief? Thank you for the
Thank you.
report. Let's move on to the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening, I'm requesting council's approval of warrant number 14-1507 in the amount of $1,227,102.35 from the listed funds. Payroll for the period ended August 7th, 2014, the amount of $254,186.41 for a total be approved of $1,481,288.76.
Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderman Seifert. Discussion. Then the roll, please.
Shower.
Aye.
Seifert.
Aye.
McIver.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
7 ayes.
The warrant has been approved. We do not have a monthly report this month. But let's move on to standing committee reports. Do the chairman have Alderman Shower?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our next admin finance meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2014 at 6 p.m. in our upstairs meeting room.
Alderman Marquez?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a reminder, Municipal Services will be meeting next Monday night, 6:30, here in the council chambers.
Alderman McIver?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At tonight's Police Committee meeting, we approved the minutes of the July 21st, 2014 Police Committee meeting, and those have been submitted to City Manager. And our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, September 15th, 2014, at 6 p.m. in the Police Department Training Room, pending agenda items. And possibly, depending on that agenda, we might move it to a little bit later time, in which case we would announce that at the next City Council meeting.
Thank you. Let's move to questions and comments, agenda related. Do any of the aldermen have questions, comments on any of the items on the agenda this evening? And we have no audience except for the reporter, so I know he'll be asking us questions later if he has any. Let's move on to old business, and there being no old business, our consent agenda is 2 items this evening. The first item is a motion to grant a waiver of the raffle license bond requirement for the Reconnect Girls on behalf of the Wings Program, Inc. And item B is a motion, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute a law enforcement mutual aid agreement and participate in the Illinois Law Enforcement Alarm System. Do we have a motion to approve? Alderman Kenny. Second by Alderman Shower. The roll, please.
Kenny?
Aye.
Shower?
Aye.
Belkey?
Aye.
Belzak?
Aye.
Marquez?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
McIver?
Aye.
7 ayes.
The 2 items have been approved. Under new business, we have 1 item. Item A is a motion to approve a resolution to add quantities for the Capitol Drive, 68th Street, and Iris Road ditch maintenance projects in an amount not to exceed $190,000. A motion to approve, Alderman Marquez, seconded by Alderman Belkey. Discussion? The roll, please.
Marquez?
Aye.
Belkey?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
Belzak?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
McIver?
Aye.
Shower?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays.
Item has been approved. Let's move to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. Any of the aldermen have any general comments? Alderman Kenny, I guess I have to recognize you. Yes?
I do have one. Most of you are aware of it, that this evening I was flagged with this, ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, and it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, my video today, and I've challenged my entire city council here, you, Mayor Weaver included, Chief Brown, Mr. Gombach, Mr. Vanna. Apparently, in the excitement, I forgot our clerk and our treasurer, but so you're safe.
You didn't
Thought you could only
challenge
pick
them?
I did not challenge
Oh,
them,
well,
but
then
ALS
I'm
is
not going to do it unless everybody's going to do it. I'm
Mayor,
not
it's an
gonna
election year. You got to do it.
I think there's a few more people up here that are up for election, too. Yes.
That's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
For
Okay.
the record, I've already completed it.
I've already completed it.
Oh, congratulations to all 3 of you for doing that. That's great. And you already made your donations, too.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. All right. If there's no other announcements, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman McIver, seconded by Alderman Belkey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Right, who jinxed us today?
Right there.